Welcome to the Blueprint Life. Each week we'll explore family and faith and finances and see how they all connect and talk about a life that is designed, not just a life that you live, that you stumble into. This week I want to talk to you about the meaning, like finding joy in your finances. You know, sometimes we'll meet with people and we'll talk to them about, their dreams and their goals and what they're trying to do. And we'll ask questions, about legacy and about how they want to raise their children and grandchildren and how they want to make the world a better place. And people kind of look at us a little wide-eyed because they've never had these questions before. And so I want to talk to you about the idea of thinking a little deeper than just going to work and doing the 9 to 5 or the 8 to 4, whatever you do, and doing that till you're 55 or 60 or 65 and then retiring and then, living a few years in retirement and growing older and passing away. That doesn't sound like much of an existence. But what if? And I love the what if questions. What if you could stop and take a gauge of your life, take a measurement of your life and your goals and what you're trying to accomplish and ask those deeply introspective questions of, what do I want to leave my mark on the world to be? How do I want to make this place a better place? We believe at Blueprint that your finances are at the center of that because they're a tool. They're an opportunity to provide security for your family. That's the first thing. I believe that taking care of your immediate family is really should be the utmost importance. Also thinking about your own future and how do you plan ahead, and we deal with the question of how do I have enough finances set aside to deal with the unknown, and the unknown could be longevity, living a long time. It could be health concerns. It could be a change of residence, of where you live and how you have to live. How do I plan for that unknown thing in the future? What if you get beyond that? What are you going to do with the rest of your resources and your time and your energy? So I just want you to think about this question of, and the world is full of this. You can study story after story of people who've been very, very wealthy, and they never found their meaning. They never found the thing that is greater than themselves. I heard a guy say that you can get everything you want in life as long as you help others achieve what they want in life. And it's the idea of that servant leaderhood. It's the idea of finding a reason that's bigger than you. It's the idea of finding a story that's greater than your own story. And I want to encourage you in that. We are hardwired, the way we're made is not just about ourselves. It's got to be bigger than that. So, you can choose to live a life that is about you, and that it's only about your story and you're building your name up and all that. Or you can say, maybe there's a greater way to live. Maybe there's a cause that I can help contribute to. Maybe there's a movement. Maybe there's an underserved part of culture or society. Or maybe there's a group of people who have been hurt that maybe I've got some abilities, some skills, some gifts, some resources, some time, some energy, some passions that I can pour into people. The world is full of people who have found their story and found their cause, and it just energizes them. And so, years ago, I'll tell you an interesting story. Years ago, part of my work is in sales, and I was studying sales managers and how they work with people. And there was a guy at a company that I was working with that he had a lady that worked for him and he couldn't motivate her. He would draw the charts of if you do this many conversations and sell this many, widgets, then you'll make this amount of dollars. And the lady just wasn't really deeply motivated by the money. Now, we all need money. We've got to pay for things like, gas for our cars and mortgages and rent and health insurance and food and shirts and clothes, all that fun stuff. But not everybody's motivated by that. And the guy kept trying to motivate this lady with just the dollars. She's throwing the dollars out, and she just didn't take the bait. And then one day he realized, he's just kind of thinking to himself, maybe that's not the thing that motivates her. And he sat her down and he said, hey, if you were guaranteed to succeed, at whatever you tried, what would you want to do this year? And she thought about it and she said, I would like to help 100 families feel secure in their finances. He said, 100 families? She said, yeah. He said, okay, so let's talk about this. He said, and they had some products that they sold that helped people do that. He said, how many conversations do you think you need to have every week to help one family? She said, well, I think probably 1 out of 3, if I have a good meeting, 1 out of 3 will take the product that I'm offering. He said, okay, that's your close rate basically. So he said 1 out of 3. So if you want to help 100 families and you have to have 3 conversations to help every family, then it looks like you need to have 300 conversations this year. She said, that sounds right. He goes, well, how many weeks do you want to work this year? She goes, well, I'm only going to take 2 weeks off of vacation. He goes, okay, that's easy math. He goes, there's 50 weeks and we need to have 300 conversations. You do the math. This lady's work came down to having 6 conversations a week. If she could have 6 conversations a week, then she would help 2 families now with feeling secure in their finances. So fast forward, he went about a month into it. She was having the conversations and things were going okay. But he said she still was missing that why. She goes, I don't know, I don't have a great reminder of what I'm doing. He said, let's do this. He went and bought her an old Polaroid. You remember the ones where you shake the film? Bought her an old Polaroid. And he said, every time you have a conversation with a family, I want you to get their permission, and I want you to he bought this big cork board that covered one of the walls in her office, almost edge to edge. He said, I want you to take a Polaroid of them and write their name and the date at the bottom of the Polaroid picture. Regardless whether they bought the thing you're selling or not, I want you to have that. By the end of the year, I want you to have 300 pictures on the end of that wall in a 12-month cycle. And the lady said, done. He said, I'll buy the film for you. And that old film was expensive. So long story short, fast forward, the lady found out her why. She found out her why. And the why was to help people. And she needed to see their faces and needed to see their smiles and see their eyes and see their apprehensions and their fears. And so at the end of the year, she had broken all of her sales goals. She had broken all the records she'd ever had before. She led her office. She not only it wasn't 1 out of every 3, it was like 2 out of every 3, and sometimes even a higher ratio. She was helping more people. She felt more energized. She had more income. She had hired an assistant. All these wonderful cascading repercussions happen in her life, and it's because she found out her why. She simply found out her why. What is the thing that gives you that juice, that gives you that energy? And for her, it was helping people. And I want you to think about your life and your finances and maybe think a little bigger. It can't just be, I'm just gonna survive. You know, sometimes we just want to survive. But I think that the bigger dream, the bigger questions, the bigger why can help you be all that you are designed to be. You know, what is the thing behind why you do what you do? There's a joy in that if you're just on the surface level, you're missing out on the best reasons of life. You know, I love it when I see people that are generous. I love being around really generous people. You know, we have been the object of generosity several times, really some major times in our lives. And it's humbling, but it's also encouraging that you need to be a part of that. I'll tell you a quick story about myself. When I was in high school, my parents were in real estate, and part of their responsibilities was to manage properties. And I lived, again, I told you in another video, in Enterprise, Alabama, next to Fort Rucker. And we had a lot of these Army pilots would come in. They'd come in and learn how to fly helicopters. So they would start on a trainer, and then they would get their aircraft. They would either fly like a Huey or a Black Hawk or an Apache or a Chinook or a Cobra. There are all these different helicopters. And a lot of times these pilots would come in for training, get assigned their new craft, get trained on the craft, go to an assignment somewhere. A lot of them went to Alaska or Germany or Korea. Or other places, but those are the big 3. And then they would come back. And so we would have these people that would live in our little community 2, 3, 4 times. A lot of them would retire in this community. And so my mom and dad, when I was graduating high school, and my kids would say in the late 1900s, little brats, love them, but they're brats sometimes. They would, my mom and dad I was graduating from high school, and they said, hey, there's a man that you need to send an invitation to. Remember the old high school announcements you send stuff to? This was in 1994, so this tells you how old I am. And so I sent an invitation to this guy, and he was a colonel in the Army, and this is $1994, and the guy sent me back a $500 check. Now I want you to think about something. I am knocking on 50's door. If you round up, I'm already 50. And I remember the amount, and I'm talking about it today. So this kind of had a significant impact on my life 31 years ago, almost 32 years ago. And so I get this and I'm blown away by it. And, you know, I have to write the thank you notes, which I hated. And I called my mom and I said, hey, what's the story behind that? Because you ought to go by and see that guy. So I went by to see him, just knocked on the door and said, I just want to tell you thank you. And I brought him his little note. And I said, tell me your family story. And long story short, his family was very, very wealthy. They had some kind of little invention somewhere along the line. And whoever, I think it was his great-grandfather or grandfather, had said, basically, you know, we've got this money as a family, but I've got some requirements on it. And their requirement was they had to go into the armed forces, become an officer, and retire out. So you had brothers who were in the Air Force and sisters, and all this, because it was like, only way you get the money is to go through this requirement, this standard. But he said, but in our DNA as a family is we've all been taught to be generous. And we were taught that these resources aren't just for you, they're for other people. And so I want you to, and it was, I mean, I'm talking about today, 31 years later, here I am just remarking about this man's generosity to me. So I want you to think about, you know, in life, you can live and choose the way you want to live. You can say it's all about me, and you can hoard your stuff and not be generous, which is close-handed living, or you can have your hands open and say, well, what's the greater good that I can do with this? What's the purpose of me having these resources? What's the purpose of me having my time and my energy? You know, it can even go beyond that. Maybe you're a great listener. Maybe you're a person who doesn't mind when someone's going through something, just sitting and listening and just letting someone pour out their heart to you. You know, use that. You know, maybe you give great counsel. Maybe you are a person who gets joy out of doing little tasks. You know, my mom lives in a neighborhood. I grew up out in the country on some land, but my mom and my dad moved into a neighborhood, and there's one of our neighbors, and I've not even met the man, but I'm super thankful that he likes doing little tasks. Mom is, you know, in her 80s and not great with her balance, and I would never want her climbing even a step ladder. And there's a man that'll come by and just say, hey, Miss Brenda, you know, we call her Pearl as a nickname, but Miss Brenda, what can I do? You know, what do you need around the house? I mean, changing a light bulb to her is a major event, and this guy just comes by and does it. You know, the other day she had to change the batteries on her door locks, just all kinds of little things. And I'm thankful that man is using something that he's just kind of good at, just the little tasks around the house. And so at Blueprint, back to the point of these videos, at Blueprint, we're trying to help people figure out the bigger questions, the bigger why. You know, and that's obviously we want to help people design financial plans that help them get out of debt and relieve stress and prepare for the future. And, you know, are they putting the right money into their retirement accounts? Are they putting enough money into the retirement accounts? What about questions about life insurance? And what about college planning for my children? What if I want to put money aside for my kids, but I'm not sure that they're going to go to college? Well, we have solutions for that. You know, what about things like estate planning and wills and trusts and medical directives and power of attorneys? What do I need to do about all that stuff? Well, we know about those things. You know, you may say, hey, what if I'm going to be making a major purchase the next year and a half, 2 years, and I want to put some money aside and I want it just to sit in neutral? What can I do with it? We've got answers for that. So that's part of our work as well. But we want to go a little deeper. We don't want to just be people that take orders or that sell widgets. We want to be a team of folks that helps people kind of dive into their hearts and find out the greater why. What are you trying to do in your life? What are you trying to accomplish? You know, and we've had people who've changed careers midstream with us as we're working with them. We've had people that have had inheritances. I've had people that have decided to give away a lot of their money to charities and other things. And so it's wonderful for us to be in partnership with clients that become friends. Hope you enjoy this. These are some thoughts, you know, looking for the joy in what we're doing, not just the dollars, but looking for the joy. So have a great week, and we will see you soon.